Whitlow, fake to him. Whitlow rolling right on a keeper. Up across the 15, cuts left at the 20, on Saru at the 30. Headed to the near sideline, one man to beat. Makes the move at midfield. Coming to the near side at the 30. He's at the 20. He's at the 10. 5. Touchdown, Kentucky.
Coming into another episode of Believe in Kentucky. Aaron Gershon from the Cat's Paws, from UK quarterback Jalen Whitlow gives us the highlight there, courtesy of Tom Leach. My name is Vinny Hardy. Fellas, we're still licking wounds. Just a few days removed from 6 days removed from Aaron being in Pittsburgh Thursday, watching them in person, lose to Oakland. All that's going to dominate this episode. We did an emergency episode Sunday with Jay Whitt, man. We hadn't had you on since this latest meltdown. So we gotta get your thoughts on what we saw on the court against the Oakland Golden Grizzlies, man.
Golden Grizzlies. Oh, brother.
Yeah, man. I don't know, man. And I say I don't know because I don't know why. You got to come up with the money to get him out of there and the courage. You know.
Yeah.
You do. I mean, it is what it is. Like the most underachieving sports program in collegiate athletics has been Kentucky basketball in the past 5 years.
I don't disagree.
I mean, name somebody else who's underachieved as much as they have.
No.
I mean, so again, if it was football, he'd be fired. You know, if it was football, he'd be fired. So you gotta make that decision. I think it's the best decision for everybody. You know, you put him out of his misery, and you kind of, you know, get some new blood. At some point, things do get stale when a coach has been in the place for a while.
Exactly.
You know, so, and I don't care. It could be anybody. You know, there's very few people who can transcend that. Nick Saban, Coach K at Duke. You know, there's very few people who can transcend that. And it even got stale late with Bill Belichick, who's arguably the best football coach.
They finally pushed him out.
So, you know, I just don't, you know, again, you lose to St. Peter's and you turn around and lose to Oakland, the Golden
Grizzlies.
You know, hey,
the Peacocks and the Golden Grizzlies.
I didn't want to be negative on the podcast. What was it, 2 weeks ago? But when I saw them lose in the SEC tournament, I was like, it's over. They're not winning. They're not gonna. If they get past the first round, they'll lose in the second round. That's what I told myself.
I had the same vibe.
They let. It's too many times where it's just a lack of heart, a lack of will, where guys just scoring at the rim on them, man. I've never seen a Kentucky team like that. So that goes to show you something, you know, the leadership isn't resonating anymore. Something has gone stale. Something has, you know, it's just not, the energy is not as fresh anymore. And I think you got to make a change. So, to say I was surprised, I was surprised. You know, I was surprised that they lost to Oakland, and to find out that I knew this, but you know, now all of a sudden my fiance is all of a sudden an Oakland fan. Now that's what she graduated from.
Seriously?
Yeah, she went to another school in Ohio, played volleyball. Then she moved back and went to school. She graduated from Oakland.
You can't make that up.
You can't make it up. And I'm like, hold on. I was like, you graduated from Oakland. And now she showed me her emails so that she's getting all of these Oakland emails now.
Oh yeah. They want to cash in on that.
Oh man, they are. Hey, they doing a good job of milking that one.
Mm-hmm. So that's gonna live in their lore. Yep.
Yeah. So you know, now she, you know, got bragging rights to say, hey, my little old school beat Kentucky. So
wow.
That's amazing. So yeah, Kentucky's now causing me pain. So but no, it's just, well, yeah, you know, we all know what the right decision would have been.
It would have been.
You know, it is what it is. You know, Kyle has had a great run, man.
Yeah.
The amount of guys he helped put in the NBA is second to none in the history of college basketball. So you can kind of ride away in the sunset with that. However, obviously that wasn't enough, so they got to let this thing go another year. Which, like I said, unless everybody comes back, which is not happening, unless they all buy in and say, hey. Not all, but most of them say, "Hey, let's give this thing another run." Another crop of freshmen coming in, another crop of transfers. I just don't see the. I just don't see it, man. And I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I'm just being honest. Like, I just don't see it. And I get DeMarcus Cousins and those guys. They play for him, and they stand up to their coach. I get that, and I respect that. However, when you just take the Kentucky glasses off and you just look at it from a objective point of view, you have to be honest and say, yeah, it's over. You got to let that thing go. So we'll see what happens. We'll in about 5 months, 6 months, we'll be talking about Kentucky basketball ramping up and everything, and and we'll get this thing going again. But I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, man. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. That's what it feels like's happening here. And it's not what's so frustrating about it is, everyone's like, well, if they commit to getting older and they commit to staff changes, like, maybe that'll do it. Well, we've done that already, right? Like the 2020, okay, they go 9-16. A lot of people want to throw that out because it was a COVID year. Fine. They have a good regular season. But that 21-22 team that lost to St. Peter's had one freshman in the rotation, Ty Washington. It was, I have it right here, 4 juniors, 2 grad seniors with Mintz and Grady, and a sophomore in Lance Ware. I mean, that's it. That was that was a veteran team. Then the next year, when you have just, I would say, a mid-season, as the kids would say nowadays, you go 22-12 at Kentucky, you get 1 playoff win, and then you're done. You lose to the higher seed. That team had 5 seniors, including the consensus National Player of the Year coming back. It had 5 seniors. That also on that team, Antonio Reeves, C.J. Frederick. I mean, a veteran team. Jacob Toppin. They have a junior on that team in Lance Ware and just 2 freshmen in the rotation with Kaysen and Chris. And Kaysen and Chris, especially Kaysen, were 2 of your best players and never really weren't too. Chris really, I thought, was pretty consistently good from February on, and I thought Kaysen was as steady as anyone on that team. So there was no real vulnerability there. So you already tried getting older, and that blew up in your face. And you've tried making stat changes. Joel Justice was scapegoated for being a lousy recruiter. That guy's still coaching in the tournament right now. Yeah. Tony Barbie, what does he do? He was kind of their defensive guy, didn't do much on the recruiting trail. He wasn't a great head coach at Auburn. All right, let's get him taken care of, get him a head coaching job. He's the MAC Coach of the Year this year. And you've got – so it just, to me, all the things that they laid out are being laid out as possible fixes have already been tried and failed. It'd be one thing if he had never tried those things and he was getting the benefit of the doubt because he's just been so, which he is stubborn, but he has actually made the tweaks that he has talked about and that people are saying need to happen. And we've seen it fail. So why are we doing this again? And look, the $33 million thing, Mitch made a decision in 2019. In hindsight, it was a terrible one. At the time, how could you say no? The guy had been, in the second weekend of the NCAA tournament, every time he had got to the tournament, right? Except for the year with Jamal Murray, they lost in the round of 32. But every other year, they at least were in the second weekend. And the only year they'd missed the tournament was the year that Nerns Noel got hurt. Right. So an amazing run at that point. And he was going to possibly go to UCLA. You had to keep him. You made the mistake. But at that point, I don't even know if you could consider it a mistake. But now, that $33 million, I'd been told that there were ways to kind of, whether it was pay him over time, but, then you have to think about, okay, we got to pay a new coach top dollar. We got to bring in new staff. And then how about Kenny Brooks just got paid a pretty good deal. football staffers, whatever. So it creates a ripple down effect that makes it hard on the program. But I just think going through this again, we've already seen them try some of the things I'm assuming are going to get attempted this offseason. They haven't worked. I'm not going to have any faith until proven otherwise. And then, the other thing with it too is the pressure on the kids coming in next year is going to be unfair. And I've seen people make the point like, oh, there's always pressure on players at Kentucky. It's Kentucky. And that's true. There is always pressure there, but this is going to be a different type of pressure. I mean, when they go and play Duke in that Champions Classic, and if they don't win that game, you're not going to want to look at social media. And then it's just going to, and then you're going to have half the crowd say they win that game. And that should be a night to celebrate. People are going to be like, well, we're just going to choke in March. Like we're just doing this again. Where if you had a fresh voice that could have set expectations, whether really, as long as you bring in a fresh voice and they don't do what Kenny Payne did year one, like all you have to do in year one, in my opinion now, is compete. Like be in the hunt to make the tournament. And at Kentucky, I think they would have been able to do that because you would have been able to get pretty much any transfer you want. Maybe guys like, we'll see what Reed Shepherd does. I think no matter the coach here is, I don't think he's a guy who would transfer out. I think it would be an NBA thing. Guys like Travis Perry, I think would still come no matter who the coach is. But I just think you had a chance to start over and let this fan base and let everyone heal a little bit. Maybe, USC is about to come open. If Cal really wanted the West Coast 5 years ago, maybe that could have been a fit, but we're going to run it back. So there's a lot to it. I'm not surprised that this was the decision. I just think it's the wrong one, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. I see people have been killing me on Twitter. They've been agreeing with me on Twitter. You're entitled to whatever you want, but my opinion is it's a mistake, and if I'm wrong, I'll be happy I'm wrong.
Yeah, and I'm to the point. I wasn't maybe in the firing camp. I wasn't gung ho. You see a lot of people, let's ride. I wasn't that either, but I was. Yeah, look, I'm a longtime Cowboys fan. They haven't done anything close to being what they should since the mid '90s, and when they make the playoffs. They had home field throughout a few years, and your Giants limped in and knocked them out as a wild card team. I'm to the point now, they got to show me. The Cowboys have to show me that they can put it together, get to an NFC Championship game, and if you get there, get to a Super Bowl. That's where I'm at with Cal now. You gotta show me. We had a season where we lost 3 games in a row at Rupp for the first time in the history of the building. That didn't happen in the 9-16 season, and one of those wins came at Tennessee. So you had 8 wins that you still spread out where you didn't lose 3 home games in a row at Rupp somehow. We've heard the whole get this bad taste out of my mouth before. The same stuff he said Monday night.
Yep.
He said after the St. Peter's loss.
The same thing.
Right. But
he said the standard thing. I mean to cut you off. He said the whole standard spiel that he gave Monday after 9-16. Like that was 3 years ago.
And so it feels like that, you've lost it. Can you get it back? It feels like, kind of cutting corners. Are you really grinding to try to get back to what you were? You've had the Cal Tucker article on The Athletic a few months ago, and
was he right?
Kind of laying bare, how the sausage is made or what's not being done, and what steps are being taken to really legit try to fix stuff. So we already know they're running back, like you said. You disagree with that, Aaron. You said the same thing, Jalen. Get the money to make a move. That's not happening this year. They had the BB and Tonight TV interview. Gosh. They just finished that. So here, it's everybody's nothing's gonna change really unless he really
was frustrating, man. That was because, and I say this, I love everyone over there. They know that, Keith, Maggie, they do a great job, and I respect the hell out of what they do, and really, really appreciate them. And it's not their fault, but when you don't go in front of a press conference room and you're the UK sports TV station, and the questions aren't going to be the same. Like, it's just not. I mean, it was just from Cal's point, it was a repeat of what he said Monday. And Mitch, I mean, I thought there was one good line about how, both of them understand they need to put themselves in position to leave this place in a good spot. But other than that, it was all defensive. It was all, making us all look like idiots for saying they have a bad relationship over the years, which everyone knows. You listen to any national pot, Pete Thamel, Matt Norlander, any big Jeff Goodman, any big insider, everyone knows the relationship between those two has been bad. I have stories. I'm not going to bring them up. I'm not going to be that guy to just like blow the whole thing up and spread stuff and people want to believe or not. But like, it's just, it's ridiculous. And there weren't any tough questions in there. I actually thought Tom Leach on Monday night really, really did a great job and asked some pretty tough questions. And maybe that's just because he's been with Cal for 15 years and been doing that radio show, and they've built that trust where he could kind of hammer it home. I don't know, but there was just if they wanted to really have some accountability and answer tough questions and really have the fan base know what's going on, they would have done it in a press conference where obviously Keith, Maggie, anyone at BBN tonight could have chimed in and asked any questions they want, but also everyone else on the beat. There are a lot of questions that are still unanswered, and, maybe they will do a press conference. I doubt it, but I think it would go a long way if they did and had some accountability on that type of stage. But, that was frustrating. And then, I think tomorrow, if I would hope for Kenny Brooks' sake, Mitch Barnhart is not taking questions during his press conference, because I don't want that. I don't want that moment ruined for that guy. And I'm really excited about that hire. We'll get into that a little later. That's probably the most positive thing going on campus right now. Well, spring football's going fine, but you know what I mean. That was good news there. But maybe, I'll go and we'll see. Maybe Mitch will take some questions afterwards and that can come out. But it just feels like that was they wanted to be seen together. I get it, but the optics there, I think it would have gone a long way for. Maybe I'm biased because I'm a media member, but I saw some fans saying too, get in front of a press conference room, like have it open to everybody with no punches held back, because there would have been tough questions. I would ask some of them.
Yeah, and you never know what John Wong's going to ask. He'll be coming with anything to question. So they curveballs and stuff that.
Yeah, I mean there are certain things like certain things I want answered. For example, are Mitch, did you tell Cal this is it? Like, is this a last ride? If it fails, are we done after this year? Right? Like, that's one I think is a really important question. Or Mitch, was the buyout an issue? Like, would something have been different if the buyout, like, those are legitimate questions you're not going to get in, I don't want to say a controlled environment, but a understanded, like, we're going to follow these guidelines environment. So that's my guess on how it went, at least just based on what I listened to. So it was just that was frustrating. I actually thought we got whether you agree with it or not, we got stuff out of the radio show Monday. It wasn't all Cal-isms. There were some, but it wasn't all Cal-isms. This one, it was disappointing because I think a press conference would really help here.
Wouldn't be as choreographed.
I mean,
unpredictability to be,
Mitch got in front of us after the whole Stoops Cal thing last year, and he took it for 41 minutes. So I just don't know why we're not doing this here when we're talking Kentucky basketball. Like you said, Jalen, that it's as big of a thing in college sports, and it's underachieving as big as any big name in college sports. Like, if Alabama had 4 down years in a row, which they did obviously in the early 2000s and led to a firing and hiring Nick Saban, like, there would have been accountability there. I feel like there would have been press conferences in Tuscaloosa. So I don't know why we're not doing that in Lexington.
Yeah, I think they kind of let the monster get too big here, man, in Lexington. Yeah. So,
that's all we do, man.
And the other, did we talk about it Sunday, Vinny, where Joby Hall told Cal this was a 10-year job, right? And now we're in year 16. Like, again, I'm not. It's a totally hindsight thing to say the contract was a mistake, because at the time it wasn't, because the resume was there. But
just like
that just happened to be year 10, and here we are going into year 16, and we're coming off 4 horrendous outcomes to end the season.
Just like people want to, bash him for making Joker Phillips coach in waiting, but if you hadn't have and he goes to coach somewhere else, they would have crushed him for that.
Sure.
Now the hire didn't go as hoped.
No.
But he would have never heard the end of it had he just let him walk away and not secure him, because Joker was getting offers and was on the radar to be a head coach at that time. And so same thing. If you don't do what you got to do to keep from going to UCLA, you probably get crushed at that time. Now it hasn't gone well. So he was in a catch-22 in both instances, for different reasons.
Yeah, the ones that you can get upset with, like Kyra Elsie was a tough hire, but you know what? She was an assistant. It was a really tough spot because, Mitchell retires, 2 weeks before the season. Mm-hmm. You may have rushed the gun on taking the interim tag, whatever. And then when he hired another women's coach before Mitchell. I forget the name, but that hire didn't go well. Those type of hires.
Mickey DeMoss before?
Mickey DeMoss, yeah, he didn't do well at all. And then Billy Gillespie, you get a lot of blame for. That was the worst in his history here, obviously. But yeah, those are hindsight decisions that, they're tough in the moment.
Mickey, if I'm not mistaken, I believe she was a Pat Summitt assistant, so it's probably pedigree and it probably seemed like, he's a calculated, for the most part, he's a calculated dude that, he weighs everything out. The Billy Gillespie might have been his most knee-jerk thing because they beat Louisville in the tournament with Texas A&M. And so that I think that probably might,
that would have been like if
and it was he didn't really have a lot of years. He had a good year at UTEP and a couple of good years at Texas A&M.
Right.
And then we saw what it was. But, got to talk about it like we talked about Sunday. We got to talk about the Autograph app real quick, let everybody know. And unfortunately, when you get on the app now, we're reading about off-season content from the basketball standpoint because, March Madness did not go like we hoped. But you can still get on there, check out the articles, podcasts, get rewarded for it. Autograph Phantom app gives you access to all your favorite Kentucky content in one place and offers rewards like tickets, exclusive merchandise, and more. You're already listening to our show, but now you can earn points and get rewarded for it. So head over to the Autograph app, Autograph Phantom Rewarded at the Apple App Store. Use the referral code BELIEVE Kentucky, BLEAV Kentucky. The link and the code are also in our podcast description. So some of the things too is he willing to change?
Right.
I don't know. And it's up to him totally. He's 65 years old, been doing this a long time. It's kind of, your colleague Chris Fisher said it the best on the tweet is, do we have faith that he will change it? And I'm not confident that he will change. Like one of the things he said Monday with continuing to start Edwards and DJ Wagner, even afraid if you bench them, they're not going to be engaged. And right. You just keep putting him out there to struggle. Now Edwards did work out of it, great. But you're saying if you take him out of starting lineup, you're going to lose him?
Yeah, that's a Kenny Payne type answer there.
Yeah, that one was interesting to me.
Yeah, I read that. That's crazy.
Yeah, and the thing, DJ Wagner was hurt, so you had the out to pull him and have a pretty good reason, right? Because I think, I give Justin a hell of a lot of credit for everything he went through this year, and he did legitimately get better down the stretch. And, obviously the tournament game, he had a couple tough misses at the rim again, but he wasn't he scored 10. He gave you more than Reed in that game. So, but DJ was, he got hurt. He sat and missed 4 games with the ankle after the fact. It swelled up on him, and they had him coming off the bench for the first few games after that. You could have left him there because they would have been fine, with him coming off the bench. So the fact there was a risk of disengagement, I don't know if that's a Cal problem. I don't know if that's a player problem, but that's got to be worked out internally to where guys are buying. Reed and Rob never complain. You need that from everybody. So I don't know what happened there, but the change stuff. My whole thing with it is to his credit, he has changed at times. This year, he went all in on the offense, and the offense was the most exciting offense we've seen in a decade. but the defense suffered as a result. And that was something he said tonight, where he said, or I think it was tonight. It was they were all the same, so I can't remember if it was tonight or Monday. But he said something along the lines of, we knew that with the team we had coming in, that we were going to lack toughness, so we needed to go outscore everyone. And if that's your identity for a year, that's fine. But there were some games where they took the air out of the ball and they didn't run. Like the Oakland game, they could have run, and I don't think Oakland would have caught up. And they played slow. The Auburn game, they win, but they played slow in that game where they probably could have run and lapped them. There were certain games like Miami and Alabama where they just, even Tennessee at home, where they had a really good offensive game. Like they went out and just ran and it worked, But so why didn't you make that adjustment? Like it's certain things like that. And then, like we were just talking about, like he had old teams and they lost to St. Peter's and then were a 6 seed. And that's why he went back and went young again, because that didn't work. So like what exactly, my big question would be, and that's another one. Okay, you tried getting older. The question I had in press conference, you tried getting older, that failed. You tried going offensive first, that failed. What is it you could possibly do now? Because like, what is there? What else can you try? That's my thing. Like, what else is there to try? Is what I'd love to know. What else can you do?
And I think y'all touched on how much pressure was on this past March. And, it was his words, built for March, and
I've said it all year, man.
We're built for March, let's go. And then you one and done in the SEC and the NCAA tournament. So all of that pressure is just going to be compounded when you get to next March. And I know it's before y'all's time, but Aaron, you're a baseball guy. I mean, Chuck Knobloch from Minnesota, he couldn't throw the ball to first. He was second baseman. And he's throwing the ball in the stands, just routine plays. If he couldn't make it, and this is what we're getting now. We're just getting yips every March, every tournament, to where it's
and that's why. And look, we'll see what this roster is. I don't want to judge it quite yet, but we know it's going to have 6 freshmen. And then you would assume, just because of numbers games, you might have a junior come back and and anyone else that would return is only going to be a sophomore. And Cal and Mitch did have a point, and Cal made it Monday, but they have a point where they're, with the talent they collect, they're in a tough spot where they have to wait for these draft decisions before they can guarantee a spot to someone in the portal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you figure that out, but like you have to, because like they need help in the portal. And I think it would act like, as much as they've tried it, if they were able to get some real impact portal guys and mix it up, you can at least see how it goes. Like I'm still going to be skeptical because we've seen them try it, but at least like you can prove that you put that effort in and you backed up what you said you were going to do. And I think that would go a long way, just from a trust standpoint, that your words actually mean something. But it's just an impossible situation all around. Like that is a fair point with what they have to deal with. But I mean, we already saw, I think, a kid from Belmont, who's one of the top ranked guys in the portal right now, get off the board. Like these guys are going to go. And then schools like Louisville, and I'm just using Louisville as an example, but there's SMU, USC, like they're going to need rosters and they're going to go hit the portal hard. And Louisville, all 3 of those schools have a lot of money and they're going to win on some recruits. So like you need to hurry up and start competing here. And it's hard to, because you have all these spots and you're not going to reject the kid to come back like some others would. So but the whole point of that with the pressure though is you're looking like you're probably going to have another mostly young team that's going to have to deal with this again, or maybe an old team can block out the noise better, because we saw Antonio Reeves and Trey Mitchell were the 2 best players on the floor by a mile against Oakland.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't envy John Calipari and Mitch Barnhart. It's a mess, and good luck.
And I think we talked about it Sunday too, and then we can move over to Kenny Brooks and spring practice. But ask straight up, do you feel your players were tight? And he said you'll have to ask them. And
then he said they were anxious.
Right. And so that was another one that just didn't really add up.
And that was after he'd said they went bowling the Sunday of the selection Sunday. So they were trying to loosen them up that way. And on Monday, which I couldn't believe he said, they stopped scouting opponents because they didn't want to put too much on them.
Right. Yes.
That it's one thing if you're Tennessee, like I'm just throwing Tennessee out there because they're old. If you have an old team, that's fine, I think, because they'll figure it out. They're smart. Like they've seen it. When you have 7 freshmen, 2 sophomores in your rotation, like you got to scout and they got to know what's up. They got to know, okay, Golke and Townsend are their dudes. We got to do everything we can to stop those guys because I didn't see that. I didn't see that in the sky. Like I like you got to give young teams all the advantage you can. And
so
they didn't do that.
It just feels like you're just cutting corners now. You're just not, you hear it's cliche, attention to detail. It seems like a lot of stuff is just getting skipped or just pushed aside, not really focused on or emphasized like it should be. So
I mean, Cal's always been he's always been a questionable in-game coach, but I would never say he's had before the lifetime contract, his teams were focused and knew what to do. Just sometimes maybe a timeout situation, a play call was bad. But I never felt like Calipari teams were ill-prepared until these last 4 years. And I don't know what's up with that. I don't know if it's complacency. I don't know if it's age. I don't know what the hell is wrong with it. But that is something that has to get changed this offseason if they won't have any chance to get back on track next year.
And all that's fine and dandy. When you're winning, you can let all this slippage and stuff. It gets overlooked.
You can have no relationship with your AD, and it's going to get overlooked because they're winning ball games.
And he's always said it. At the end of the year, I want my guys to be empowered. And that way, I don't have to call a play for you.
He hasn't said that in a while.
But even then, I'm like, you still the coach. You should be ready to call a play if need be. Don't just let it be. Well, Aaron Harrison, he's the guy. Let Andrew call the play or Tyler Eulis. Even when you were winning, that always just kind of sounded a little suspect to me. That was always a little sketchy. Even 4 or 5 years ago, where it was like, you just can't just delegate everything to where it's just I'm gonna get this all off of me by the end of the year. I shouldn't have to do any, and maybe he shouldn't. Maybe you shouldn't. You should be a coach on the floor. You don't have to be looking at him every time, but you should be ready to call something if need be too. I think it's a little bit of some balance there, and it always felt like 100%. It wasn't. That's just maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there used to be that balance, and that I don't know what it is. I don't know if anyone knows what's going on anymore, and it's a scary place to be. And look, I hope we're all eating crow this time next year. I just, as of right now, I don't see it.
Yeah,
prove me wrong. Prove most of the fan base wrong. I don't see it right now, and we'll see. It's let's just say hopefully we'll have a roster by the end of May, and we'll have a good idea on what the team's going to look like. But I'm going to be skeptical until next season ends. I don't know how you could be any other way when it's been 4 years of the same thing.
I don't think anybody will be happy until they're in the Final Four next year. I mean,
that's true. No, you're right.
How could you? I mean, this is Kentucky we're talking about. We're not talking about, Georgia basketball. We're talking about Kentucky. Nobody's going to be satisfied.
No.
Unless they are playing in the last weekend
100%
of college basketball season.
Yeah. And if you want to be fair and say, oh, we're a football pod, like people are going to expect an improved year from football this year too. They had 2, by their new standards, not great years. Like, we're going to expect more out of them and hold them to a higher standard. And now with Kenny Brooks coming in, there's going to be a higher standard for that program. And now that baseball had a good year last year, there's a standard for them too. But when you're talking about Kentucky basketball, when they are, huge, they are the New York Yankees, the Dallas Cowboys, Pittsburgh Steelers of college basketball. Like the expectations are just going to be through the roof, and you got to try to meet them. So it's a mess right now.
Yeah, for sure. So flipping over to the women's basketball, like you said, most positive thing. Mitch Barnhart had a lot going on. He had to do the TV interview, had to find a coach, had to decide on keeping a coach, which they decided to do. But Kenny Brooks from Virginia Tech is coming over to be the women's coach. And look, he's been where Kentucky women's basketball aspires to be. He has been to and coached in a Final Four. And that's, and he comes over home run hire, man. A lot of people want to get on Mitch for a lot of different stuff, but I think that's a great hire, man.
Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about it on this show, how much respect we have for the women's game and how entertaining of a product we've had in recent years, with Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers, Haley Van Lith, Angel Reese, all those players. But to have it here would be a lot of fun. I mean, we had Ryan Howard for 4 years, which was special, but those teams around her weren't good enough. This is a coach that, like you said, Vinny, was in the Final Four last year. And Virginia Tech, before he got there, they'd never been to a Sweet 16, Final Four, Elite Eight, nothing. And he's done it all there. So, and this year their best player unfortunately, she's a grad senior, so she won't be transferring here. But 3-time All-American hurt her knee, and they didn't have her for the playoffs. So, they were a 4 seed, and then they dipped they lost in the round of 32. But they probably would have had an even better year this year. But last year ACC tournament champions, and everything. They were able to accomplish, get to the Final Four, play, LSU, the defending eventual champions, tight. So I love it, man. I think going into this new renovated memorial that they spent a lot of money on, the SEC is really good, really, really good. And now you're going to start acting like a serious program with us in a sport that's rising in popularity. You're going to be able to sell tickets. I think this is a really exciting hire. I think this is something that can really get this program popular and get some butts in the seats and wins a lot of games and start getting into the upper echelon of the SEC with the I don't know if you're ever going to be South Carolina, but maybe get into that LSU mix up there and do it pretty quick. So really cool, a really cool hire.
No doubt. Yeah, I didn't really, to be honest, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know who it was until I looked it up. And like you said, you probably could make a better hire at this point. So, look, if you can create, like you said, with women's basketball being on the uptick, like it is, I mean, truth be told, man, let's call a spade a spade. I've had more fun watching women's basketball.
The Final Fours last year weren't even close. I'll give it that.
Have missed. I mean, I'm just being honest.
Yeah, last year wasn't that close.
Right, and I think women's college basketball is light years ahead of women's pro basketball.
Yes.
So that says a lot. And if you can bring an excitement level to Lexington with women's college basketball, you can start bringing those caliber players that LSU and South Carolina has. Now, like you said, South Carolina is like the tip of the spear.
They passed UConn, which is almost impossible to do.
Yeah. What Dawn Staley is doing there is nothing short of elite with the best coaches ever in any sport. So, if you can create some traction with women's college basketball, you can create an added element of buzz on campus it's been untapped. It's been untapped. When students go to LSU now, they think, okay, I can't wait to go to football games first. Then it's not men's basketball. I can't wait to go to a women's basketball game. That's the second thing on their mind when it comes to going to a sporting event at LSU. And I'm sure baseball's in there somewhere or whatever, but
yeah, baseball.
Yeah, but when you think South Carolina, you think
they're number one.
Yeah, I can't wait to go to a women's college basketball game. If I'm just a regular student and I'm going, let alone an athlete, obviously they're going to go, but just a regular student, I cannot wait to go see what Dawn Staley's team looked like in person. So if you could bring that to Lexington, you got Kentucky basketball. Football is the best it's been since I don't know when. And, Kentucky basketball is always going to be Kentucky basketball. Obviously, it helps if they win it. But, you got women's college basketball, and you got baseball on the uprising. Softball always solid, and some years really good. So you could essentially have 5 sports where, people actually want to go see. So not only do you increase potential enrollment at the school, but, you can generate funds too, man. Because like I said, you go to those women's college basketball games the past couple of years, and it's just nobody in the seats. And you got to change that. I mean, I'll always err on the side of I'm okay with losing, but only if we're trying to win.
Yes.
Yeah.
It seemed like in the past few years, women's and men's basketball, there hasn't been really a real emphasis on being elite, like I think the potential is. And I think Kentucky, anytime you're talking basketball in the state of Kentucky, obviously, you're talking big time stuff. So if you can get those girls that are good to stay in state, and you can recruit at a high level, get those girls that down in Georgia, Florida, whatever they are, Texas, to come to Kentucky to play basketball, you can add another level to the school as a whole. So I think that's a possibility. So like you said, we say a lot about Mitch Barnhart. I think his time as an AD is ticking, but he kind of went back in time on this one. I thought this is, when I really look into it, it's a good hire.
Yep.
Yeah. Everybody that's watching on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, feel free to drop comments if you want to, questions or what have you. We'll be glad to incorporate them into the show. But when you talk about a South Carolina or an LSU or those perennial programs, it's either wait for them to come back to earth or you go and try to get them and close the gap.
Yeah.
And like when the Warriors were light years ahead of everybody had to step up and try to beat the Warriors. Everybody tried to get to the level that they're on. So you bring in a guy like Kenny Brooks, who, like you said, did what he did at Virginia Tech, Virginia native. I was talking to a guy on another podcast. He played at James Madison for Lefty Driesell. So that's a legend. Went on to coach at Maryland. And then he goes and does what, like you mentioned, Aaron, at Virginia Tech, transforms them and elevates them. And now he's stepping into the SEC, the best conference, the best coaches. And, he's got his work cut out for him. But you definitely know that the target is South Carolina, and he's going to try to work on closing that gap.
Sure.
See who he brings with him, who has eligibility, and everybody that you hear talk about him is a great guy, not a negative word said about him. Seen some UK players and, parents of UK players. Cassidy Rose's dad was talking about he hasn't heard a negative word about him and things of that nature. So
I haven't seen
a
that.
good coach. I mean, a good hire, man. So can't wait to see him get it going. And like you mentioned, both of y'all get to recruit to a newly renovated memorial. And that's going to be great for the volleyball, which is already doing well, the gymnastics, which is already doing well.
Oh, yeah. I'm missing out.
So it's good to see that, man. I can't wait to get up to see the new memorial myself, man.
Yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun for sure.
Shout out to volleyball coach Craig Skinner, coach of the year, SEC.
Yes, absolutely. Hey, Ryan Creech with another nugget about Kenny Brooks, and he is more of a Louisville fan than a Kentucky fan. He said he beat Louisville and Jeff Walls while at Virginia Tech. UK gives him an even bigger opportunity. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Because, we haven't seen the women beat Louisville in a while. That's been one-sided for a while when it comes to Kentucky and Louisville women's basketball. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's going to even the playing field pretty quick. I saw some diehard Louisville fans praising that hire. So, yeah.
Right.
I mean,
and praising it and praising it and kind of like, oh, man, I hate he's going to Kentucky at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, whenever you see the opposing fan base that loses their coach really upset, you know you got a good one. And that Virginia Tech fan base, they weren't mad, but they were upset. So, that's usually a good sign.
Absolutely. Oh, April 13th, spring game coming up quick. So spring practice rolling along. I thought when Coach Hamden was speaking and had some interviews and stuff, and what y'all been hearing and seeing, and get rid of the vibe. And he had a commitment today too. Got another Caddis.
Yeah, another Caddis. Like 5 of them now, it feels like. But no. He actually dropped some nuggets on Tuesday about some guys who were impressing. Where Mark Stoops said in his first thing, I wasn't there yet, but he said, I'm going to try not to give individual praise, and then Hamden kind of slips them out. But I thought it was interesting that he brought up Jason Patterson, a freshman running back, already getting some work with the ones. It's interesting with Hamden's background; he's always had an 1,000-yard rusher every time he's called plays. So I wonder if he's trying to find a bell cow. You would think if he does, it's going to be Chip Trainum, but maybe he is committed to the committee thing. I asked him about it. He said it's important to have multiple ball carriers. So, we'll see if he stays true to that or what. But I thought that was an interesting observation he pointed out. Jalen Farmer, the transfer from Florida, playing well. It was good to hear. Fred Ferrier getting a lot of run. Jamori, it was also dropped by Barryon Brown. Probably not what the coaches wanted to hear. That Jamori Macklin's out with an injury right now. So Fred Ferrier, the transfer from UAB, seems like he's been the guy to step up there. So that was cool to hear. Obviously, he's a Frankfurt kid, so he'll be a fan favorite right away if he gets going. And then Austin Ramsey was the one that I was a little surprised in a good way that was getting a lot of talk from Eric Wolford, which I don't know if you heard the Eric Wolford interview. My God, is that guy intense. It's a change of pace. Let's just say that from what Zach Yenser was. But about Austin Ramsey being a guy you can move around and the body type. I mean, this was a guy that wasn't like on the original. He was a 3-star commit out of Philly. Wasn't on the original roster going into last year because he didn't show up until late August. I don't know why that is. I'm not insinuating anything bad there, but he didn't show up till August, redshirted, and apparently he's like competing in a big way here. So I thought that was really good to hear. So we'll get more on the defense tomorrow. I think Brad White will probably be closer to the chest, kind of like Stoops is. I don't know if we're really going to get much there, but I actually thought we got quite a bit of news out of the offensive guys on Tuesday, which was good to hear.
Yeah, I watched his Bush interview. What day was that?
He did one last Thursday. I didn't watch this. I didn't got to watch that one yet because that was my one little day in Pittsburgh.
He had the pro day interview as well.
Stoops did a pro day one. Yeah,
Bush did a pro day one.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Bush and Brad White as well. But yeah, I like what I'm hearing. I like what I'm hearing from Barryon Brown. He sounds pretty.
He sounds mature, right?
Yeah. He does. He sounds like and Stoops even said that he liked the steps that have been taken in that room since Da'Kel Shorts has showed up. But Barryon Brown sound like he liked Coach Shorts. He sound like Coach Shorts is doing again. Good players are they always tend to respect players that's played that position at a high level. That, and that's no slight towards Woody, but that's just the truth. I mean, it is what it is. So
I agree.
And Woody played at a high level. He played quarterback in college. So, but as a receiver, you want a guy who's done what you've, that you're wanting to do. So you want to see that. So, but yeah, Barryon Brown sound mature. He sounded like he's enjoying the new offense. He had high praise for all the quarterbacks. He said the quarterbacks are doing well. Obviously, that could be some media training involved in that too. But he sounds like he's liking the offense. He sounds like he's enjoying. He's liking what he's seeing. So that's good, man. It's always good to say that you got a strong running back room. You got a freshman emerging in there.
Who wears 26, by the way. I usually goes pretty well here.
And he's taking some reps from Chip Trainum, which is that's big. To have a guy to do that. I mean, Bush mentioned that he said this is as strong as a tight end room that he's seen. he said this room is right up there with the strongest room in the building. Which we could expect. They got some guys coming back, and they got some.
We've heard that once or twice.
Yeah. So I think that his offense is going to allow those guys to be a little bit more featured, and they're not only just getting the football, but just the variation that they use with those guys and blocking and lining up, and whatnot. So I'm excited to see that. I think you got to start really getting those guys the ball, or you're going to stop getting some of the top guys. So you got to start, kind of getting those guys to rock at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest with you, we're all waiting to see some footage of the quarterback situation, man. That's at the end of that's what I want to see. Show me what's going on, man. I want to see that.
There's going to be an open practice at some point, so I'll be able to get some. I actually asked about that. When are we getting that? So hopefully, maybe this coming week, next week, or before the spring game.
Yeah, and they have to be really strategic when planning those open practices, because they, usually when it's a new offense, they try to make sure they keep everything close.
Oh, yeah.
They try not to show too much. So we'll see a very vanilla version of the offense in that open practice, but rightfully so. But yeah, I'm anxious, man. And they were saying that the DBs are really pushing the receivers pushing the DBs. Offensive line is one thing I liked what Eric Wolfer was saying, how he said how those guys are moving around. He's going to start moving them around and playing them in different positions, which in my opinion, spring is the time to do that. I think, it's a great – you're going to have injuries. You're going to have guys get dicked up. You need to be able to move your left tackle to right tackle, your right tackle to left guard, your center to guard, or your guard to center. You need to be able to do that. And this is the time to work on it when the stakes are low. You can't throw it on them in September when the stakes are starting to get high. You got to work on it now. So that's good. And I'm sure they always done that, but it's good to hear that and them give them some information out on that. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens, man. I think, like I said, I saw a few clips on, some razzle dazzle in the offense. I saw a few clips. Was it on Instagram, running a reverse to somebody or some type of jet sweep or whatnot. So that's good, man. I want to see that. And like I said, we want to see some variety when it comes to tempo.
Yes.
we got to see that. And I think that's been the biggest thing. And not to go on my soapbox and nerd out, but
go ahead. 'Cause I got a question anyway. I got a question for you in a minute anyway.
The new earpieces. I'm extremely intrigued what some of these coaches are saying about them. You hear Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin talking about how he think it gives his offense even better advantage.
Go even faster.
If I'm a D coordinator, I don't want to hear that shit, man. That's that is. I mean, they were like the third fastest offense in the country.
Probably someone else in there.
Yeah. I think Tennessee was up there. I forgot who was up there. But anyway, they were like top 3 or 4, if I remember correctly.
Wasn't it like Jacksonville State? I only think it was because they played South Carolina. I remember hearing that on the broadcast.
Yeah. Rich Rod at Jacksonville State, so I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, Rich Rod. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
So, it's really intriguing to hear this, because you hear Bush Hampton talking about. By the way, if you just put James Franklin on the screen and put Bush Hampton on the screen and close your eyes, they sound just alike.
They do.
They sound just alike.
They do.
But anyway, but Bush Hampton, he was talking about how everybody, and I was wondering this because I'm not in those rooms, but you hear things, but they are still going to use signals, so they're not going to rely on just the technology. And I think that's the smart way to go, because somebody asked me my opinion on it, and I was like, I don't like it. I'd rather just use the signals, because you can't rely on technology. So he said they're going to do both, because that's going to allow them to be able to give information to the quarterback, but also signal the play to everybody and the quarterback. So the quarterback may not always get the football play, the concept. He may just get information. So they may signal, duo left, inside zone left, bubble, right? Whatever their words for that. However, he may get that, but the earpiece in the quarterback's helmet may say, hey, let's make sure we watch this nickel for, nickel blitz or whatever. Watch out for strong rotation. And that's what I want to hear. Like, I want to hear how are they using it, right? Because some teams are going to use it. And he mentioned that they're going to huddle. So I'm sure when they huddle, he may get the whole play in his earpiece and, regurgitate that to the offense. But I'm just interested to see how many people use it. There are some programs out there that may not use it at all, even though they have the option to use it. I don't see where it benefits Tennessee when they're going super high tempo. I don't see where it really benefits them when they're playing at their peak speed. Because at the end of the day, they're playing so fast, you don't want to bombard the quarterback with information when you're trying to play that fast. It only slows them up. But you hear some NFL guys, there's some guys in the NFL talking about how they like as much info as possible. Mm-hmm. So they want the coach to give them everything they possibly can before that thing shuts off. And you hear some guys say, just give me the play. Don't give me any information. I want to be able to process this on my own. So you kind of got two different ways of thought when it comes to that thing. So I'm anxious to see how that works. And also with the defense. With the defense, I think it's actually more helpful with defenses when you can get the play to the mic and then the mic can start to, get the play out. So I'm just anxious to see that. I'm just, nerding out on that and whatnot and listening to coaches talk about it because I always thought it was interesting.
My question, too, you said we're going back to the receivers. You said, Barryon was, liking the fact that Shorts had played the position and that's his position coach. And I know we talked about in the past, too. You also mentioned the advantages sometimes as to having a quarterback be a wide receivers coach because they know the whole offense and where players are supposed to be. So is it a trade-off? Is it just every situation is different? Every receiver and coach is different because, you got this guy that you replace a quarterback that you replace your former wide receiver coach that was a QB with a receiver coach who actually played wide out. So you know what I'm trying to ask. I might not be articulating it, but
no, you got it.
What are the pros and the cons? How much better is it? And that whole thing, because we talked about it a little bit in the past.
Yeah, I always say a good coach is a good coach. A good coach is going to figure it out and do. So like a guy like Woody probably just he wasn't at a huge school doing it before he got doing it. So he didn't have the credibility. Okay. And sometimes it's just he maybe just didn't have the fire or the swag or the drip, the sauce, whatever that some of those players want to see. Mm-hmm. On the flip side of that, a quarterback coaching the receiver room, a good coach that played quarterback can help the receivers understand timing, understand how to make themselves available to the quarterback, understand when the quarterback is ready to throw, what is he looking at, why is he looking there. And I'm sure he helped a lot in that aspect, no doubt. With two quarterbacks who played in college, coaching on the same offensive staff, I'm sure they learned a lot, no doubt. Yep. I think where they kind of went wrong is maybe he's not as, like I said, maybe he wasn't as fiery or as great of a connector or recruiter. And that may have caused some things, because if T. Martin left Baltimore right now and came to coach the receivers at Kentucky, nobody would complain, because I know T. Martin and I know exactly I know what he's going to bring to the table. And that's a guy who played quarterback and he's coached receivers at the highest level. Mm-hmm. At USC, he coached receivers at Kentucky, he coached receivers with Baltimore. So what you're going to get from him, even though he played quarterback. So I think it kind of matters where the guy's been, but also it just matters who the guy is. Like who is the coach? Like who's the person at their core? Because players want somebody who's going to connect with them. They want somebody who's going to push them. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you get to coaching really good players and the coach is he's not really pushing them. He's almost just like guiding them and just making sure that they don't piss the player off sometimes. And you kind of get that when you coaching really good players. However, when you coaching guys who, like I said, fiery, and they may not care about that. And they, sometimes players respect that a lot more, and they they able to cling on to that. And maybe DeKale Shorts is a guy who they mentioned that he's really connecting with them outside of football, so maybe he's doing a better job with that. But I'm sure if I had to guess, he's also somebody who's going to get in their ass, and players need that at the end of the day. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Randy Moss or Calvin Johnson. I'm sure they like their receiver coach to coach them hard, and the good ones do, to make sure they hold them accountable so they can be their best. So I'm not saying that was the issue with Woody. I'm just saying that one of those things happened. Something in there, didn't necessarily fit with Stoops and the receivers, with exactly what they want.
Mm-hmm. Well, good stuff, man. I appreciate the knowledge, and we get more spring practice stuff coming, more off-season basketball stuff coming, baseball rolling, 21-4. Ole Miss coming up, so you're off to a good start. I hope they, 5-1 in the conference, keep stacking wins. Softball doing good, gymnastics rolling. So,
so everyone but men's basketball.
I mean,
it's a new day, man. It's a new day.
We gotta get. I guess if we want to be fair, we gotta get some SEC wins in softball. I know they're 0-6 in the league, so. But no, other than that, things are going pretty well outside of what happened last Thursday.
Yeah, for real. And before we close, I got to give a shout out to my Harlan County Black Bears. They made it to the state tournament, and Kentucky does it by region. So from the 13th region where I'm at, that is the first team to get to the state tournament and win games since Richie Farmer, who played at Clay County in 87 and 88, and they were doing battle with Allen Houston and Ballard out of Louisville. That's the last time a 13th region team got to the state tournament and won a game. They won 3 games, got to the final Saturday against Lyon County. Travis Perry, who was Mr. Basketball, broke King Kelly's Coleman's state scoring record last year. That was their 3rd time in the Sweet 16, so they were trying to get over their hump. They had not won a championship, but we got over the hump and got there. They were getting over the hump and actually won it. Tied going into the 4th quarter, and they ended up winning 67-58. So they made some plays when they had to. They some dagger floaters when if you just they had to have it. They hit the shots, and you just got to tip your cap to them. But can't take nothing away from the Black Bears, and everybody's proud of them. They still had a nice parade and a little homecoming for them back at home for running up. So props to Coach Jones. Trent Noah is going to South Carolina. Got a feeling he's going to come up and do some work in Rupp Arena again. He had 48 against Campbell County. They were down 16 in the second half, forced overtime, and won by 14-15 going away. So they're getting a player. So
so cool.
So I had to definitely mention that. Yeah. And spring game coming up, Jalen, and we talk about restaurants and stuff for your listeners, man. You got to put Giuseppe's on your list in Lexington.
That's a good one.
You said your palate is maybe not the most. You said your words like a simple palate, but hey, you can go in there and get you some scallops, some seafood, some spaghetti, some lasagna. Hey, I took the wife up there a couple weeks ago. Hey,
no complaint.
Ooh, Giuseppe's, man, off of Old Nicholasville Road in Lexington. Add that to the list. Listeners, y'all still give Jalen some restaurants because it's been a while since he's back to Lexington. That was a thing we did when we first started this podcast. So when Jalen does come back, man, some new places to try out and get some food, man. But
no doubt.
It's a good one, man.
That's a good one.
Appreciate that.
Another fun episode, y'all. We'll be back next Wednesday. This again. If we have to do emergency stuff, we will. But appreciate everybody watching. Appreciate the comments. One last question from Ryan because he's a Louisville guy. How excited are we that they hired Kelsey? Hey, Louisville was swinging and trying to get guys, and somebody finally said yes. So good.
Yeah,
good for them.
I will say I love that dude's energy. Like I love it. I think at least there's going to be juice at Louisville that. There's going to be a guy who's going to win the press conference. He's going to be a rah-rah guy. I think it's going to make it a lot of fun when that Kentucky game comes around because, if there's any game that Calipari always gets up for, it's that Louisville game, and we haven't really seen that on the other side in the last couple of years. So I think Pat Kelsey will have his boys ready at Rupp Arena this year. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But it is crazy how they ended up with a group of five coach, or not group of five football, a mid-major coach over Dusty May, or I just don't know how it got there, but I think it's a better hire than Richard Pitino would have been, and even than Josh Schertz, because as much as I think highly, and he's an up and comer, you're battling St. Louis for him. He's only in his third year D1. So there are things I like about the Pat Kelsey hire. It's also ironic that he's a Chris Mack disciple, but
that's a little.
But I think I don't think it's a great hire. I think it's a meh hire, but it could have been even funnier. So
yeah, and like Jalen said, a good coach is a good coach. So if he can step into Louisville and not get in over his head and prove that he can handle that, then maybe he can turn around. You got the transfer portal, you can turn rosters really quick. Everybody thought Kenny Payne would go in there and do that, being a former Louisville guy, playing for them and knowing what it is, what he was getting into, and just that went in there and had no clue at all. Looked totally clueless, which is
ain't nowhere to go but up for Kelsey.
Yeah, maybe you convince some of those guys that are in the portal to stay too. Sky Clark, Huntley Hatfield entered the portal today. Ooh. Trey White, those are their three guys. Really, there are only three guys. But maybe get one or two of those guys back. Who knows? But I think if we were really rooting for the hire that would have made us all laugh, it would have been Richard Pitino.
Oh man, if they had done that one, bring Junior back in, that would have been amazing. I
still think they fumbled. I don't know how you. And I guess Dusty May's a mid-major coach too, but the dude was in the Final Four last
year. Yeah. So appreciate the comments, Ryan. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Appreciate everybody that takes time to check us out. Subscribe, follow, like, all that good stuff. Retweet, tell your friends about it. And we'll be back at the latest a week from tonight with another episode. Keep you caught up on all things UK. For Aaron Gershon, Jalen Whitlow, my name is Vinny Hardy. It's been another episode of Believe in Kentucky. We'll catch everybody next time.